probably the biggest reason of all was because, I needed something that I could excel at. And at that stage of my life, school was not my friend. I was not the typical student. I'd like to think it wasn't a matter of intelligence. It just wasn't the greatest fit for me. And so really I was looking for a vehicle to be able to excel without having to follow what I thought to be a traditional mold. My father's a Vietnam veteran from the Army. On my mother's side, my grandfather was World War II Navy veteran. So patriotism, military service runs in the family. So that was never outside of the realm of possibility. Yeah. But I actually was a junior in high school. I want to say it was January or February that year. And I saw the recruiter doing a setup in the school cafeteria. And nobody was talking to him. And I figured that would be as good of a time as any to kind of get his ear and find out what was going on. Yeah. Shout out to retired First Sergeant Keith Sander. Me and him grabbed Permane Brothers in Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago. And hopefully next week when I'm back in Pittsburgh, we get to meet up again. But, that's how these things build, right? It's all about relationships in life. And that day in that cafeteria, we built a relationship or started to build a relationship. And now here we are all these years later. And he's still somebody that I've got that solid relationship with. And if you pay attention to anything in my story, I'd like to think that there's a common theme or a few common themes. And one of them is that I have relationships that span 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's amazing how in life, if you keep, those relationships going and you fuel them, how they come back around. So, you and I are a great example of that, right? So when did you get on Camp Courtney?
I got on Camp Courtney in 2008, like around December time, 2008.
Okay. So the reason why that's so important is I left Okinawa for terminal leave in December of 2008. So I remember you, but I don't remember that it was that short of a period of time. That's how the brain works, right? Over time, we lose track of whether or not it was a day, a week, a month, or a year. Right. But you and I knew each other, even if it was just in passing, for a month. And now here we are, 13 years later or 12 and a half years later, and we're on a podcast together. And it turns out that my neighbor in Atlanta is your wife's cousin, right? That's how life works. Degrees of separation or whatever it may be. But that's why we got to cultivate relationships. If you look at the common themes in most successful people's lives, whether they're Marine Corps successful, whether they're successful authors like yourself, podcasters like yourself, whether it's business, if everybody that you meet walks away and thinks, I don't ever want to talk to that cat again, then the likelihood that you're going to be able to continue to rise and build is much lower. So, that was how I joined the Marine Corps. And again, that was kind of the beginning of how my relationships in the Marine Corps work. I've been out now, I'm sure we'll get into it more in depth in a few minutes, but I've been out now longer than I was in. And, on a daily basis, I'm interacting with somebody that I serve. So if, not everybody's that way, not everybody's wired the way that I am, but if you can build and cultivate and fuel relationships over the long haul, you're going to be happier, healthier, and better.
Yeah. I see, like, this is why I was so excited to talk to you, because like, I can just give you the ball and you could just, how to shoot the ball, how to dribble the ball, and you put in a lot of key factors that people need to hear, when it comes to creating the story. Like, we're here now, but there was a story that was being created, when we joined the Marine Corps, when we stood on the yellow footprints, when we were going through hell in boot camp, when we were learning our MOSs and stuff, and to the point where, you met my wife's cousin, and I didn't know her at the time when I crossed paths with you, and like you said, here we are now, and we've both built ourselves up after the military and through the military, so that's really big. And like you said, people, like, you don't want to be that person that people never want to see again. Like, so what gave you this mindset that you have today? Like, were you, as a Marine, did you always have this mindset, or was it something you built over time?
The first real boss that I had in the Marine Corps was Jesse Simmons. Sergeant Simmons at that time, he retired, I believe, as a CWO3.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was all about never burning bridges. He was all about, leaving things better than we got it. When I started working for him, I was 18, and I want to say he was 31. He had gotten out. He did 4 years, got out, came back in. So he had a more mature, more involved thought process, certainly more so than I did while I was in. And so in terms of talking about being fed, right, I was being fed on a daily basis on how these relationships work in those things carry forward. So, I would like to believe that my time in the Marine Corps was very purposeful. And I think that that's something that many of my peers look back on and they say, especially those first couple of years, I wasn't purposeful at all, and they regret it. In my case, I almost think sometimes I was too purposeful, because what happens is you get too serious, too intense, you get too singularly focused, and it can actually, take away some of the fun. Sometimes I wish I could go back in that time of my life and enjoy myself a little bit more, because that level of purpose was kind of always there, very intentional. But here I am now, I'm having fun and I'm being intentional at the same time. So I guess we learn more about that as we get gray.
Yeah. Hey, look, you see it right here, right? We got the grades. We got the grades to prove it.
Go gray, get great, right?
Go great, get great. Exactly. Yeah. To all my friends who's been making fun of me over these past few years, you heard them. But man, talking about purpose, and in the Marine Corps, like, there was this overall sense of purpose that I found. It was this purpose that I knew what I needed to do. I knew where I needed to be, and like, I learned my job, so I knew how to do my job at that moment in time. And I don't think I was so focused on life's purpose. Like, in the Marine Corps, I just felt like I was in a whole different world. Like, I was born into a whole nother world, and my focus was different. I wasn't thinking about building a business as an entrepreneur. I wasn't thinking about making extra money. It was just like Marine Corps, right? So what would you say to those Marines who are in right now, and being that you've seen this other side of the world after you get out of the Marine Corps, like, what would you tell them to do differently, either with their finances or with building and finding their purpose as a human being?
Well, first thing, if we're talking finances, I would tell anybody that's still in to take advantage of your finances now, because your expenses will explode when you get out. It's just fact of life. Your expenses will never be smaller than while you're in. And I don't care if you're in and you've got 24 years in, or in and you've got 4 months in.
Right.
Just the truth of the matter is that most of your expenses while you're wearing a uniform are self-imposed. So definitely in terms of finances, get it right. And you may be somebody like myself who gets out and takes a pay cut, and I know that sounds impossible, especially if you're a sergeant or below. But I got out and took a pay cut. It was what it was. Wow. It made life interesting. There's no doubt about it. But I figured it out. In terms of what I would tell folks that are currently serving, I would say start your preparation for your next chapter now. And I don't care if you got 10 more years left in, 20 years more left in, anything that you can do now to prepare yourself for the future, you'll be better off. So if you have time, start getting your education now. And believe me, I was the guy, I don't want to get my education. And I ended up getting out and getting an MBA. I was wrong. But while I was in, I could have been working on my Six Sigma. I could have been working on a green belt. I could have been working on some sort of certification. I could have been doing all kind of things. And in my mind at that time, I didn't have time. It wasn't an interest of mine. I didn't need that to go forward. And the truth is, I ended up doing all that stuff after I got out, when I had even less time.
And a family.
Because at that point in my life, I had a wife, and I had children, and I had a different level of outside responsibility. So start preparing now. The other thing is start having conversations with people that know better. And that could be people that know better within the Marine Corps. That could be people that know better outside the Marine Corps. But the truth of the matter is that we need to be continually interacting with people that are better than us.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean people that were born better than us, but that means that people that are further along in their journey than we are. Because that, what I can espouse to somebody who is beginning their career outside of the military today is infinitely more than I could have 10 years ago. What I knew about the Marine Corps after being in for 2 enlistments was infinitely more than I knew before I went in. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's not admitting that you're weak. It's admitting that somebody else is strong. And if you can't hang with people that are strong, then sorry, it's gonna be a rough road.
Right. Man, you preaching, brother. You preaching, bro. I like this. And that's really, I love what you're saying, because, I don't think I had a specific mentor while I was in, but the awesome thing about the Marine Corps is that there's so many Marines that you could just pick and choose from, those who are excelling in their PT, and excelling with their Marine learning, excelling in their MOS, and you can find it. Like, there's not like specifically like, oh, there was this one mentor for me. It was like my chief warrant officer. He would come up to me and say, "Devil Dog, what did you do for my Corps today?" And it was just like,
"What did you do, killer?"
Yeah, what you do? What you did, killer? It's like they check you, and it's like,
hey, Shamir Ali is gonna be mad if you don't say his name.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you got me. But yeah, Chief Warrant Siwo Ali, like, shout out to him. Like, he was definitely someone that kept me on my toes. Like, I was afraid of him in a sense, not like I was afraid, but I respected him and I respected what he stood for and how long he served. Like you said, these people, maybe they've been in longer, and you get this certain respect for them because of how they carry themselves. And Okinawa Marines are different than like stateside Marines. I think, like, in Okinawa, it was like, you have to be crisp, you have to be sharp. You're PTing day in and day out, right? So that was something that I love to do in Okinawa, man. But so you did 2 enlistments, and you're positioning yourself as this leader, sergeant of Marines. And did you ever find a time in the Marine Corps where you were going through like a imposter syndrome, like, well, I don't deserve this, or, because you come in from as a civilian and you join the Corps and you start earning, your position, your rank, your stripes, did you ever have any like moments where you didn't feel like you deserved it, or what?
Without trying to get too deep on you, when you come home from deployments and everybody didn't make it back, I think it'd be foolish not to admit that some of those thoughts go through your mind in a different way. Yeah. I'm not trying to take us too far there, but that would be the most blatant thought in my brain. I never thought I didn't deserve rank or responsibility. I always thought I deserved more rank and more responsibility than I had. And perhaps that was me having too much confidence in myself. But it worked out, so maybe not.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was my take. I was hungry for more all the time. But in terms of imposter syndrome while I was wearing a uniform, I would say making it home while other people didn't was the clear cut case of that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought it up, bro. You say I'm not going too deep, but we could touch it a little bit, because, we're both veterans, combat veterans, and, we have this understanding that life doesn't go on for everyone else. You could be, ranking up, you could be getting married, having children, and somewhere down the road in the past, one of our brothers and sisters didn't come home. And a lot of Marines are affected in their active duty service, and after they get out, they're still affected by that. What was one way that you were able to work through those dilemmas right there, where you're like, man, there's some people that haven't made it back, or even some trauma that you may have faced, right? You've had combat action. So how do you work through those mental blocks, with the trauma?
From my perspective, it was a matter of looking at this is my shot to live a life that other people weren't able to. This is my privilege to be able to do this. So I have always looked at it, and I'm not telling anybody else to take this approach, because people need to do them and need to do what works for them, maybe more importantly. But my philosophy has always been that I only get one shot at this, and some people didn't get a shot at this. So I'm either gonna push forward with a smile on my face, you know, or you know, that's the only option. Smile and work. So I'm not, again, that might not be the right antidote for everybody, but it's worked for me.
Yeah. Smile and work, be hungry. Like, I'm taking notes, brother. Like, you know, like that hunger, you know, as Marines, we get pushed to limits that people probably couldn't even imagine, you know, the crucible, you know, I think boot camp in itself, like, made me a better person after it broke me down and broke me apart. You know, it made me a different man. Like, how did you feel at graduation? Matter of fact, like when you got your EGA, when you got your Eagle Globe and Anchor, how did you feel at that moment?
Relief.
Yeah.
Absolute relief. You know, and for those that have been through it, I was ready to stop standing at attention and parade rest out in the sun.
Right. Exactly. Being in the sandbox or something like.
Yeah. So no, but that was how I felt. It was obviously a great feeling, but for me, it was more after the fact. It was more over time. In the actual moment, I was just felt blessed to be moving forward into my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm pretty sure, you know, around the time that you were, you know, ending your time in the Marine Corps, you had no idea that your life would look like it does right now. So what was your mindset when leaving the Corps? Like, were you like, oh, I know you said I wasn't this kind of person. I was like, I'm going to school. So what was your mindset like when you were leaving the Corps?
You know, my philosophy was that I was going to have a plan or two plans or three plans. I was going to make them work, and foolishly thought that would be enough. And then I got a good reminder that sometimes real life gets in the way. You know, if you look at where the economy was when I got out, it was not that long. You know, after the bubble had burst in 08, 09. So my plan was to franchise the 7-Eleven, and I was going to try and franchise a bunch of them. They had some veteran-friendly programs, and what I ended up learning was that through doing that, you work for free for a year or 2 years because the loan was so disadvantageous, and that was just a microcosm of the entire loan market at the time. So I ended up realizing that, hey, that ain't going to work. You know, I just got married. I had a mortgage, no kids yet, but, you know, working for free 80 hours a week, you know, 6-7 days a week isn't going to cut it.
Right.
So, you know, I gritted my teeth and went and got a job while I figured out a career. And I sold commercial flooring and residential flooring on commission at Century Tile in Chicago, and tried to figure out what my next act would be. I ended up catching on with Alpha Baking Company, which is S. Rosen's hamburger hot dog buns. If you've ever had a Chicago-style hot dog, that's the bun. I got a job running the sanitation department on the west side of Chicago, and essentially said, you know, was told, hey, you don't know anything, which I didn't, but you know how to lead, so figure it out. And, you know, I took the ball and I ran with it. You know, if you had told me that 10 or so years later that, you know, I would be running my own food company, I would not have believed you, not because I didn't necessarily think that I had it in me, but because I didn't think things like that happen to people like me. Wow. And what I ended up learning throughout that journey and that process is that, you know, yes, it requires luck or favor or blessings, however you want to cut it. But in a lot of ways, we make our own luck. You know, I can't remember who the famous person was that was quoted as saying that luck is where opportunity and preparation intersect. So, you know, are you networking with people? Are you learning? Are you developing yourself? Do you have a current resume? Do you have a pathway to what your goal and your future are? If you can say yes to those things, then you're on a pretty good path.
Man.
The other thing was, coming
wait,
from the military.
hold on. I don't want you because I got to stop because you said a lot of stuff that I need you to stop for a second because I need to go back because this is just, you got a good story, brother. So I just want you guys to hear like what he was saying in the beginning. Like, so he had to go and put in work, right? He had to go. He made sure he counted the costs, right? He counted the costs and he was like, well, if I start this 7-Eleven franchise, I'm not going to make money at first. And I'm married. I don't have time to do that right now. I have a mortgage. I have to find work, right? So I wanted to backtrack. So you went and did jobs that it wasn't like the job says, oh, after you do with hot dogs, you go on to, you do towels and then sanitation, like these things all come together, right? It doesn't work like that, right? So how was that process? And like, some people will say, well, I give up because there's nothing out here that I can do, so how did you go about finding those jobs and what was your mindset like in that process?
Well, so networking is how I have found the majority of my jobs. And as I've risen, in conversation, I've learned that that's how most of my peers have found jobs.
Yeah.
And that's not the only way, but ultimately, so, I found the Alpha Baking sanitation manager job on monster.com. I don't even know if that's still a thing.
Yeah.
But at the time it was very relevant. And so from there, I took what I thought was a fair salary. I might disagree with that today, but at the time, I was happy as a pig in doo-doo to be doing what I was doing and making what I was making.
Yeah.
I sought out some mentorship right away from some people I trusted. Ironically, a veteran was my peer, and he gave me some great advice that it was applicable both to veterans and non-veterans. But I really received it and tried to run with it. And then I found myself being promoted in that company. And what I ended up learning in that process was that, in the Marine Corps, it was preached, bloom where planted. And I always took issue with that. And to be honest, even today, at times I might take issue with that, depending on the situation, because I think it's easy speak for people that have bad news for people under their charge. But I was committed to blooming where I was planted. And so what ended up happening was in that company, I was promoted multiple times. And so I got to see sanitation. I got to see quality assurance. I ended up getting to see production. And what that did is it made me well-rounded. And I didn't even realize it. Right. Wow. So believe it or not, again, 10 years later, as the president of a company, some of those things that I learned in those roles, some of the technical aspects or some of the finer details provide me with insight that I never would have saw coming at this stage. So that's, and part of that is understanding that you've got to take every experience as its own. Before I was with Alpha Baking and I was on commission selling flooring, I learned a really great skill, which was rejection. Because when you're on commission selling, you're going to be rejected a lot. This is what it is. And now we run a startup food company. Guess what happens a lot with a startup? No matter how great you are, there's a lot of rejection, especially during a pandemic. And that was a skill that I honed in that role. I was only in that role for a relatively short period of time. But that was a skill that I never realized I would need. I certainly did need it, and it's benefited me now. So circling all the way back to your original question, how did I find these opportunities? That you got to pound the pavement, you got to make yourself known, you got to be willing to do things that people won't do. And most importantly, you have to network. Everybody in your building should know your name. Sometimes that means they're going to say bad things about you because you know what? If they know you, they're going to talk about you. You got to get over that. If you want to progress, if you're happy staying where you're at, that's a different story. Then go for it.
I like that. And I thank you for going back there with me, because a lot of people right now, especially coming out of this pandemic or while we're still in it, this transitioning that's happening, people may have finished college around the time when COVID started and jobs were cutting people off. People, especially in the sales industry, people were not being successful. A lot of businesses, mom and pop stores were closing. One of your brands, your brand, Lucie's Hoopie Pie, right?
Lucie's Hoopie Pies.
Hoopie Pie. I'm saying Hoopie Pies. Lucie's Hoopie Pies like is a mom and pop type, brand, and I'm pretty sure that there were other companies out here like that maybe they didn't make it, so what word of encouragement at this moment in time would you want to give to people who are in that transition phase?
Well, if you're in transition, first of all, my heart goes out to you because, that is a tough process for everybody. I mean, the reality is that, things are tough right now. But the biggest thing I would tell anybody who's going through a transition is continue to pound the pavement, continue to grind. Something that I utilize a lot in my personal life and in social media is brick by brick. And that, I took that, some years ago, a group of folks from my church went to Zambia. And part of what they did on the mission trip was they built a wall. And they said it was very important that the group from the church built it brick by brick, right? Because it was symbolic. Yeah. And that has stuck with me for probably 6 or 7 years, however many years that's been. But the point is that you've got to build things brick by brick. You can't rise and build if it's not brick by brick or some progression. Yeah. And so if you're struggling right now, that, again, my heart goes out to you. My recommendation is you continue to build. And if you feel like you're tired of building, take a little break, build again. That's the best. I don't mean to be to sound like I'm lacking empathy. I absolutely have the empathy, but I still think the only way to really kind of get past things is to go. Yeah.
I like that. And I remember you put on one of my I think my LinkedIn post, you're like brick by brick. Like I was like, yes, sir. Like it's because, we all see the house. We see like if we're talking bricks and let's say we're talking house, right? Or a wall, we see the finished product and we get to this place in life where the finished product doesn't look like what we've been like the work effort we've been putting in. Like it doesn't look or where we are right now doesn't look like the finished product, I would say. And we get discouraged and we feel like, oh man, maybe this isn't my purpose. Maybe, I work at this job and it has nothing to do with what I want to do. You've lived through that. You've lived through working and you've excelled in every job that you've done and you've networked your way up, and you never stopped, you never quit and you repeat it. Right. So, so I think that I wanted to commend you on that, man, because there's a lot of people who give up in the middle. And it's so like some people just give up because a lot of stuff is happening in their life. Right. But other people, when they give up, it's because it's not working out and it's not looking the way they want it to look. So you guys take Matthew's example, please, and just stick to your plan. Find work and do the work. Right. So you go from the Marine Corps where you worked in the weapons, you were a weapons guy, right?
And I was, and then I actually taught communications as well.
Yeah, so you were weapons, went communication, and then you're lat moving throughout life in the civilian world, and lat moving for you folks is just transitioning to another field or another job, right? So I see you like you're lat moving in life right now after you get out of the service. And now you're a president and general manager of XLNT Bakeries, right? And I saw one of the interviews. It was like XLNT. The guy was like, "Well, what does that stand for?" And he was like, "If you say it fast, it's like excellent, right?" And so Excellent Bakeries, right? So you get to this place. You're a president, general manager. That is something that takes a long time to do, and you've somehow scaled through life. Like how was this possible? Was it? I know you said networking, but like, so what kind of things did you do? Like, did you plan? How did you do this?
So I got a little story for you. There's a process, but it's got a story with it. A deacon at my church, Deacon Ray Robertson, was getting ready to leave Chicago to go to Mississippi. There's a whole bunch of jokes in that in and of itself, but we'll leave it alone.
Leave it right there.
And so Ray and I were talking, and I was kind of at a point in my career where I was looking for some good mentorship. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, what have you got for me, Ray? You're getting ready to leave. I need your best wisdom." And he told me something that to this day, I still use. And he had said that in order to be successful in business or in life, he said that you need to have real tangible goals. So,
I like that.
You can have a goal to go and be, the president of PepsiCo, but chances are, before that, you need other goals, right, that are actually tangible. So you don't go from being the guy that has the route at the store to being the president. There's steps in between there. So you need to educate yourself, and you need to plan for that. The second component to it is that you need to have things that will get you to those goals. You need to have a vehicle that will take you there, right? So you've got to have, and if it requires an education, you got to get the education. If it requires a certification, you got to get the certification. If in order to be successful, you need to work in different geographic regions, then you need to take your butt to different geographic regions, right?
Yeah.
And the third component to that was you need to have a strong enough network to be able to make you aware of the opportunities that are out there, and then speak on your behalf if you get in the running for them.
Yeah.
And that process has served me so well, because I often, and I don't want to say always, because I don't want to talk like I don't ever mess up on this, but I very often will have real tangible goals.
Yeah.
And I very often will then find out what it takes to get me to those, what the vehicle will be that will take me from point to point there. And then I have spent a lifetime building a network that, one, will inform me of what's going on, what opportunities are out there, and two, that will be able to speak intelligently on my behalf. I would like to believe that if any opportunity came about that I was interested in, and believe me, right now I'm not interested. I'm extremely happy with what I'm doing. But if I was ever interested, that there are myriad people in my world that could speak intelligently and positively about me.
Yeah.
And so that process has benefited me, and largely that's how I've gotten to the position that I'm in today.
Yeah. I love that, man. I thank you for sharing that. That's really valuable. And I think the first step that you actually did was ask. Like you were seeking wisdom.
Sure.
So like a lot of people are afraid to ask people, hey, what advice would you give me? And I think if you're not pulling from the people that are ahead of you, or people that have been places that you haven't been yet, if you're not pulling from them, you're missing out on valuable information. So Matthew, I'm glad that you asked him that, because now you were able to share that with us. And as someone who's struggled with planning, like I have the podcast and the brands and everything, and I kind of had the idea, and then I created the idea, and then planning came after I created the idea, and then I hit a lot of walls, and I think those walls can be avoided if you plan properly. And then having a vehicle, like how are you going to get there? Like a lot of people want to know where they're going. They know, oh, this is where I want to be in life, but they're like, I don't know how to get there. And I know one thing you had shared was, doing the research. So one of those vehicles are doing the research, right?
Because how else do you know what you need to do? Prior performance or prior occurrences are the best predictor of future performance or future occurrences. And we can argue all day long about whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. I'm not here to do that. I'm just telling you that that's how it works. So for me, I decided I wanted to be a C-suite executive. And so I started looking, hey, what do C-suite executives do? Well, they pretty much all have MBAs. Well, shoot, I don't even have a bachelor's degree. But you better fix that. And, it is what it is. Almost all of them, if you look, have led people or led business units in different parts of the country. Well, I was living in Chicago at the time, and as much as I loved home, finding an opportunity in Atlanta, which was my next stop, that helped kind of cross off on it. Little did I know that from there I'd be in New England, and now I'm back in the South in North Carolina. But those are common things that they do. One of the things that I looked at, I'm in the manufacturing business, and especially at lower levels in manufacturing, having a Lean or a Six Sigma background can really be a differentiator between you and your peers.
Wow.
Well, Syracuse University, through the I believe it's the IVMF, had a free Greenbelt course. So I did it, right? And I went to my employer at the time, which was Tootsie Roll, and said, hey, I did the research. I found a way to kind of progress that going forward, and explain to them what it would cost and how I had already done the majority of the work for free through Syracuse. And they were happy to spend, I don't remember what it was now. It was probably less than $500, right? Yeah. And low enough cost that I would have paid it for myself, but I found a way to get them to pay for it because it was beneficial to them as well as me. So part of that is coming to people with solutions. If you're going to talk to anybody about your problems, there is value in talking to people about your problems. Yeah. But if the goal is to be elevated, it's beneficial to talk to people about problems with solutions. Right. And so if you can differentiate yourself in the business world, especially by having solutions when everybody else only has problems, that's a heck of a way to start.
Yeah, I like that. Bringing solutions. Like, a lot of people can bring problems, but can you find the solution in engineering? Going to school with engineering, that was one of the main things that they were focused on, because with engineering, is ever changing, it's changing. Technology is changing consistently. And if you are stuck on trying to learn something from 2007, 2008, like, you're going to be behind the curve. So don't focus on what you don't know, focus on what you can learn. I think that's a big thing that I'm taking from your life as well. And I see questions. I was looking to the side because there's questions in the audience, but I'll get to you guys in a second. Don't worry. I'm trying to get mine out of here first. I want to find out some stuff, man, because so you have a lot of people who may not be willing to move. Like, you've been up north, you've been down south in Atlanta, like now you're in North Carolina, so being a man with a family and you're pursuing these opportunities, how do you prepare yourself to move geographically to different areas, with your family, and what kind of mindset do you have to have in order to leave the nest, in a sense?
I hope she hears what I'm about to say one day. Having a spouse that is willing to have your back. In our case, I'm fortunate. I have a spouse that has been willing to take those plunges with me, and that is very beneficial. And without that, there could be no ascent like I've had. Right? If my wife had not happily been along for that ride. With kids, I guess it depends on the family or the circumstance. With my kids, it's never been terribly difficult. They always get excited about the moves. But I also understand that as they get older, that may change. I've got a 7.5-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so at this stage, they can kind of be excited about whatever you're excited about. Right. I recognize that may not always be the case. So, there are components to that, but I mean, the truth of the matter is that in order to provide a certain level of lifestyle for yourself, or in order to provide, growth, sometimes that's what you've got to be willing to do. And while it may be uncomfortable at times, that's something, to be aware of. You could argue that I learned a lot about that firsthand in the military, as I'm sure you did, where, every 3 to 6 years, you're on the go one way or the other. And so that's just kind of something that people understand. With that comes, not going into things half-cocked. So if you're going to be moving to Atlanta or moving to New England or moving to Charlotte, you need to figure out where your support system is there. You need to figure out what you can afford. You need to figure out, if you're somebody who's a person of faith, you might want to look out what the landscape is for your faith in that area, so that you can come in and you are able to calm down some of the noise. And again, we've kind of become pros at that. The goal is that we don't have to be pros at that anymore. But we've become pros at that for a lot of reasons. And in terms of finding places that are good, be willing to commute would be a recommendation I would have to people, because if your job is in a place where you don't fit exactly, chances are within 30 minutes around you, 45 minutes around you, there is somewhere that fits you better, as long as you can afford it. So
yeah,
those are my thoughts.
I like that. You have that strategic leader mindset, man. Like you're just like your strategy game is on point. Like you're like, look, so you go ahead, you're almost like a logistics coordinator. Look, if we're gonna go down there, and we need to go ahead and set up our community, our network, we need to go ahead and build that, know where we're moving to, what's around it, what is our fallback plan. So that's pretty awesome, and right now, I know a friend of mine, he moved from Charlotte for a job, out in Indiana, so I think it's awesome when people take a leap of faith and say, you know what, I could always come home. I could always return back home, but why not pursue this opportunity? So if you guys have opportunities out there and you're afraid of making that step, you have a family, just go ahead. Like Matt spoke with his wife, they was on one accord, and I mean, maybe not, I'm just playing, but maybe they was on one accord. Matt was like, get in the car, pack your bags, let's go. You got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. I'm just playing. So, but that's awesome, man. And that's just a beauty of like your story is how you're transitioning through life like water. It's like I know it hasn't, like, I'm not saying that his life has been perfect or anything of that nature, but the milestones are so important. And I always say celebrate the small things, like, hey, I got another job, hey, I got a raise, celebrate the small things. So before I ask any more questions, I'll go to the audience so that I won't get yelled at. If that's okay. Is that cool, Matt?
All good in my world.
All right, cool. So we have Brendan Brown, a podcaster, high school young man. He's dedicated to the Purpose Pod. I appreciate him. He says, I may sound crazy, but I thank God for the pandemic because it inspired me to release my podcast back in March of 2020, and back in November 2019, I was nervous to release it. Yeah, Matt. I mean, not Matt, but Brendan, that's really big, and that's when we were talking about the pandemic and how a lot of jobs were being lost and stuff. So that is big. And that's how the Purpose Pod was started. I started the Purpose Pod March 21st because of the pandemic, and, in order to reach people. He says, but now it's been 2021, and the No Job podcast and the Purpose Pod inspired me to rebrand my podcast so that it could have the theme of self-improvement, productivity, and positivity. And the No Job podcast is my cousin's podcast. He's killing again right now in that. So Brendan, thank you for commenting. Oh, he got another one. He says, in the podcast has better downloads this year, awesome, than last year. And the reason it probably increased with downloads was because of, like you said, Mr. Matthew, networking to find the right goal. Exactly. I'm over here like struggling to read. I need my glasses on. But but yeah, networking is key. Networking is key. My dad says we're freezing off and on. Well, hopefully you guys, am I clear to you?
Clear on my end.
Clear on mine. Cool. So DJ Davi says, what is the most important aspects to consider when leading a group of people? I like that.
Know your audience, I think, is a big one.
Yeah.
Because you've got to lead them. You've got to take a uncommon group of people, typically, and provide them with a common goal, and then kind of push them through it.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know your audience, it's going to be a problem. If you're, dealing with a group of accountants, you probably don't want to use examples about turning wrenches. And if you're dealing with a group of mechanics, while you may want to sprinkle analytics here or there, you probably aren't going to be focused wholly and entirely on the numbers. The other thing I would tell people, I wish I could remember what the study was that I read this in. I believe it was from Harvard Business Review. But do you know what the difference between somebody talking to you and feeling like you're being placated and somebody talking to you and connecting you is for most employees? That distinguisher is the difference between asking them 2 questions and 3.
Really?
Now, it's an inexact science. Point is, if you're leading people and you walk up hey, how are you? What are you doing today? And then you walk off. According to the study that I read some years ago, most people are going to receive that as you're placating them.
Wow.
The difference between that and, hey, how are you? What are you doing? Okay, what are we going to do next?
I like that.
Could be, now you mean, clearly you've got to do that multiple times a day, every day, right? You've got to actually, in order to do that, it has to be authentic.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, that was something I made very purposeful, no coincidence intended.
Yeah.
I made very purposeful in my leading after I read that study, because if I just make time to go one step further in terms of talking to people, asking them questions, it's going to be received in a stronger, more authentic light.
Yeah, I like that. So go a little further and ask another question. Like, don't just say, "Hey, how you doing? Oh, how's your wife? All right, bye." There's more. There's more in there. So I wanted to go ahead and take this time to dive into your work. So could you tell me what's life like for you? I know you said you were in like some, your meetings and stuff like that, but what is life like for you now? It's different than being in the Marine Corps, of course. So what is life like for you now?
Well, it's busy, which is a good thing. Trying to get a startup off the ground and get some momentum, is not necessarily an easy thing, especially during a pandemic. But nobody said it would be easy for us. We found a way to grow during the pandemic. We were now in 22 states from Pennsylvania to Alaska. So, I read something not that long ago that said that in a startup, if you're not selling, then you're not growing. Right. So even for me, I'm not a quote unquote salesman, but I sell. That's a part of what we do. It's business development. I'm also here on a podcast, and this is a great podcast, but it's not the only one that I'll do, right. Because I need to be a representative and ambassador for the brand, for the company, to help get our name out there. Obviously, anybody who's at any high level of responsibility in a business, you've got to be worried about financials. If you're in a business that has investors, you've got to report to your investors, right? You've got to instill confidence with your investors. You've got to keep your current customers happy while finding your new customers. So there's all these different things. If you were in a business with a manufactured product, then you've got to nurture that, right? Because whether you manufacture it or somebody else manufactures it for you, that process has to go on. So there's numerous things that I'm not giving as clear or concise an answer as I would prefer. But nonetheless, with a company at our life cycle, it's important that we're all kind of focused on getting things from A to Z.
Yeah,
and we've been doing that.
Yeah, and you guys are killing the game, and you guys are going to be in stores soon, right? Like, well, you guys, because right now, you guys are on shelves, like, in like let's say Virginia. Are y'all in Virginia right now?
We are in Virginia,
California,
but we've got some bigger chains that are coming our way.
Yeah,
we're in 22 states from Pennsylvania to Alaska, but very shortly we're going to be in Travel Centers America, TA. The biggest travel center or biggest truck stop company in America. We're going to be in all the super targets in July 4th weekend. We're creeping our way into 7-Elevens. Cefco, for those that have Cefco, Rebel in Las Vegas, Rudder in Pennsylvania, Hotspot in South Carolina. We just launched a Hotspot a couple of weeks ago. We've just been tearing it up there, thankfully, for all the people that are in the Greenville, Spartanburg area. We actually just got put on the shelves in Garrison's convenience stores today. That's a company based in Shamrock, Texas, but they go all the way into New Mexico, and they cover kind of that West Texas area. So we've got numerous different things. We're in micro markets all across the Southeast through Canteen and 5 Star. It's a long list, but we want it to be longer. We don't want that to stop. Stripes, we're headed to Stripes this summer.
Wow.
So just keep your eyes open. XLNT Bakeries, Lucie's Hoopie Pies. The label for when we go into Target will be under a company called Waxaw Baking Company, but it'll be a Hoopie Pie. So just be ready, because we're coming.
So They're coming, guys. And if you don't know what a hoopie pie is, could you please, for me, like I mean, I've seen the pictures, like I've seen the pictures on the website and everything, but I've never had one. So could you go into what a hoopie pie is?
It's 2 moist pieces of cake and a dairy-based center, a cream center. So it's like a whoopie pie, but it's like a whoopie pie on steroids. I often tell people in sales calls that comparing a whoopie pie to a hoopie pie is like comparing a Corolla to a Cadillac. You or I would both drive them, but we'd know the difference the whole time.
Right. Come on.
So we're a premium dessert served out of the grab-and-go open-air coolers, refrigerated type situation. So the hoopie pie is not going to be found on a rack or a shelf unless it's cooler. We do have 6 new SKUs that are coming out that are shelf stable. They were actually just produced last week. It's an array of muffin tops, bun cakes, and something called boom cakes. Those are shelf stable. Those are going to be in Travel Centers of America, first of all, and a few other places, Lone Star Markets, Rebel, some others, Cal's, which is Stripes. So they're coming too. They're under the Lucie's banner also, but Lucie's muffin tops, Lucie's buns, and Lucie's boom cakes. So
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so right now, if you're finding the hoopie pie, it will be in a refrigerated area of some sort, typically next to the sandwiches, in the upright coolers or the open air gondolas, possibly even in the drink coolers, although that's not as common.
Yeah. So I really want one. Like, I just got hungry while you were talking about it, and and I really need to get one. I'm coming down to Charlotte this weekend. It's Friday. I mean, if you could just put one on top of the car for your boy, I'll come by and grab. I'm just playing.
That works. Let me know.
Put it in the cooler on top of the car. But so Lucie is an actual person, right? It's not just a made up name. So Lucie, and I believe you said her husband name was Mark, right?
Yes, Lucie and Mark. They invented the product probably 30 years ago in their kitchen. It was a holiday celebration type, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter dessert. Everybody always said, "Hey, you guys should make that a product." And then many years later, they ended up connecting with an investment firm out of Winston-Salem that I already had a relationship with. Again, networking. And because I had the background in both food and bakery specifically, I was brought on board to run the operation.
Wow. And you see the miracle, not the miracle, because it was hard work, but a miracle that like you have the credentials now that you took those jobs, and if you want to call them odd jobs because they weren't what you were doing in the Marine Corps, you took those jobs, and those jobs prepared you for where you are right now. It made you the man that you are today. And now your credentials line up to what they needed, what they wanted, right? So exactly. That's awesome. That's awesome. And you talked about it was let me see here, the self-funded search fund, right?
So a search fund is a wild thing, and the people that are hearing me say this are going to think that I'm making it up. But I swear to you, I'm not. A search fund is something where you get a group of investors to pay for you to buy a business.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, if you do something called a traditional search fund, that's where you get people that will pay you to go and find a business that you can run. And so look up the process. I won't bore everybody with it. I didn't know what it was until I was about 26 or 27 years old, maybe even 28 years old. But once I found out, I was like, man, that is it. That is perfect. And so I did what's called a self-funded search fund. And I found a business along with a partner of mine. We found a few investment groups that were interested, one of them being the investors that I'm currently with. And we found a business to buy. It fell through due to some things that I won't divulge, but through some due diligence types issues.
Yeah.
And so I maintained that relationship with those investors. And then sure enough, a few years later, when they found something that was right for them to put their money in, they were able to bring me in to run it. So a great example of maintaining positive relationships, being willing to answer the phone, call you, being willing to add value sometimes when you're not paid. Obviously, this is a job for me, so I am compensated. But when I was first discussing this, there was times that I was lending expertise And I was doing so because there was a relationship there, not just because I wanted to get paid every time I told somebody some knowledge. So there's a fine line to walk there, right? But anyhow, we've done it successfully, and a couple of years later, now here we are.
Right. I love what you just said. Providing value. Providing that value and understanding that in time your value will pay you. The value that you're inputting and the advice that you may be giving, you don't have to charge every time. Like I don't know how many people I've chatted with, like, hey Alan, I'm starting a podcast. Like, what do you do? What could I do like to get where you are? I won't tell them what I did the first year, because that's what they can skip that process now that they're asking me, like, hey, what do you recommend? Right. And even writing a book, it's like people are like, hey, like, I'm trying to write this book. Well, I'm like, well, look, I'll help you out, because I don't want you to struggle like how I did in the beginning. And if I can get you over the first 20 steps, and you could take your first step on step 21, that'd be great. So I think that's big, and it speaks a lot about your character and the person that you are. Everything that you've dropped on here has spoken so much of you that when I think of a leader, like, I would pick you out of the group, from the things that you've said and how you've expressed yourself and how you've detailed your life around purpose and being purposeful and intentional in the spaces that you've occupied. So one, like, congratulations on your success in the Corps and after the Corps. I'm glad you made it out of it. I'm glad you made it back home, from the deployments. And, there's a reason why you're still going forward, because this isn't the end. And I want to ask you this, we're getting close to the end time, but, and I didn't even get to look at the questions that I asked you on the email. So I think I've been around it. We've done a good job.
I would say so.
Yeah, we've done a really good job. But I wanted to ask you, what do you want your legacy to be from here on out? Like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, hopefully it's a legacy of success.
Right.
I think that's part of it. I mean, that's a little bit of a obvious answer.
Yeah.
A more well thought out, well developed perspective would be, a legacy of purpose. Again, coincidence unintended, but also of somebody or something that was able to persevere. Because I don't care who you are, if you're not going through a storm now, another one's coming. So
Right.
I don't say that to be negative. I just say that to be realistic.
Yeah.
And that's why you smile extra hard when things are good, and you keep as much of that smile as you can when things aren't. Because one way or the other, stuff's coming your way. So my legacy, I want to be successful. I want it to also be as somebody who's of upstanding character, morals. I take my position in life as a father very seriously, and also as a family man. So that's the purpose I want going forward.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. And so, and I have my other final question is, so for the people out here, the leaders, the executives, the presidents and the general managers out there, what would be your advice, since you have this Marine Corps history, this past, what would be your advice for them connecting with those who work under them? Like, how should they operate as a leader with their subordinates?
First and foremost, you got to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And at times that can be difficult, right? Because at different stages of our lives and of our careers, we perhaps think differently than we did at other parts of our journey.
Yeah.
But you've got to be authentic. The other thing is you've got to find a way to connect, because the truth of the matter is that in order to succeed in a team environment, you've got to have buy-in. The world that we live in today, it would be nice if everybody was going to give you 110% just because. The truth is that they're not. So you've got to find ways to coach and train and build people. And at the same time, you've got to find a way to recognize the people that are going to work hard no matter what. And at the same time, you've got to kind of multitask and find a way to create a vision and get people to the next level. So all these things have to go on at one time. You can't do it if you're not authentic. You can't do it if you don't have a plan. You can't do it if you're not pushing.
Yeah. I love that, man. So I plan on seeing you in some magazine, with the Superman pose or something like that, and like billionaire man, like with the plan, billionaire man with the plan. I'm putting that on your life right now. Billionaire man with the plan right here, folks. So Matthew, any closing words? Make sure you guys, I have the website up right here, XLNTbakeries.com. Please go check them out. Matthew is on LinkedIn. Please go check him out. You can look up his name right there. Just please go check him out. Follow him. Network. Like he was talking about network tonight. You guys, if you have a business, if you're a leader, if you're a follower, whoever you are, I'm pretty sure if you're just watching his life, or if you want to engage with his life and you want to ask him questions, please reach out to him. Is that cool, Matt? If people reach out to
Absolutely.
him? Okay, I don't want to send people to you. You're like, I don't know why Alan sent you here. I have nothing for you. I'm just playing. But and once again, his wife did the background, y'all. She did a great job with that. So shout out to his wife. I need to take. I'm like, if you see me next time and my background looks like that, on a Facebook Live, don't get mad. But I have to do that. So any last closing words for the folks out here?
Hey, thanks everybody for watching. Thank you for inviting me. And hope everybody is blessed and well. And let's keep going and winning.
Let's keep going and winning. Brick by brick. Matthew Askren, folks. So Matthew, please stand by in the background. I'll come back there right after the show ends. But I really do appreciate you being on here. You are the best leader I've met. And if somebody asks me like, so what leaders inspire you? I'm going to name you, because like what you dropped on here today, and what through my research and just learning more about you, what this guy represents. He means it. He stands by it. My wife Amber says, enjoy this interview. Good job. Thank you, boo boo, little peanut. I appreciate you, baby. But yeah, Matthew, so hang out in the background. I'll be right back there. Okay. So folks, please go follow Matthew on LinkedIn. He killed it. He nailed it. It's like he does this for a living. You would think that he just ran podcasts every day, all day. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. Please check out XLNTbakeries.com. Please go support. If you're on the Eastern side, please go grab one of those Lucie's pies. Please, please, please. I need to try one. I have to try one. I need to take one of those. I'm my lactate, right? I can't take that in right now because I need to take some pills. So Matt, I need to do that first before I indulge in that, because it's creamy and I got to be careful. But this has been another episode of the Purpose Pod, purposely driving you forward. Thank you once again, DJ Davi, Stand Back, Matthew. I really appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you to all our listeners, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the Purpose Pod on YouTube. Peace.